this. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of December 12th, 2024 Agricultural Preserve Advisory Committee meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Good morning. Matt Baton,
Aye, sure.
Sergio Ricardo,
Here.
David Lackey,
Here.
Alex.
Here.
And then Royce Larson's joining us online,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And this time, part of the agenda is opportunity for any members of the public to provide general public comments on items that are not on today's agenda. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak?
Chair Lackey, we do not have any public comment.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we're going to consider the minutes from our November 14th meeting. Do we have any suggested edits or corrections? Sergio, you good?
None for me. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comments on the minutes?
Chair Lackey, we do not have any public comment.
So I would make a motion that we approve the minutes of our November 14th hearing as presented. A
I will
second.
second.
All right.
Thank you, Royce.
Thank you, Royce.
We'll do roll call. Matt Baton,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
The vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then for agenda management, it looks like we have at least one request from the Convinia Vineyard Estate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there any context for it? Was it they just need additional time to
They
provide?
just needed additional time to provide us with what they needed.
Okay. Are there any other representatives from other items on our agenda that are requesting any type of either continuance or agenda management? Not seeing
Not
any.
seeing any
Okay.
raised hands either.
So I think we can, yeah, when we get to that item, we can continue it at that point in time. So moving on to our continued items portion of agenda. Our first continued item is the Tompkins Ranch Ag Preserve Replacement Contract. Adam Orta is the planner. And this is a request of Nick Tompkins, the applicant. Not sure if we have, I see Nick there. I'm not sure if Adam, are you present?
Not seeing him. I'm not seeing him online, so I'll reach out to him quickly.
Okay. And no, maybe I'm going to turn to our committee members just for a refresher. I know I can't exactly recall the main points that maybe Teresa, if you could bring up the maps or the map from the folder of the property. I'll try to get to Photo Mapper, but it may take a while. But I know we wanted to revisit I think the parcels that were described in the proposed new contract. Is that correct, Sergio? Is that your recollection?
Yeah, I remember that. And I also remember there being a question, excuse me, a question as to whether there could be maybe two contracts, I think. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. They were asking about maybe having the possibility of creating two instead of just one contract. I'm not sure if if the applicant is still pursuing that.
Maybe we'll turn to Mr. Tompkins. I see you online. Yeah, and I do recall, Sergio, that was at least one of the comments and that we wanted that have time to, at least for the applicant to work with the planner to see if that was something they wanted to pursue. But yeah, Mr. Tompkins, do you have any
Yeah,
additional
thank you.
insight?
Thank you for allowing me to go through this. And I think that I may have erred in, what our goal was in this a little bit. And I will share one of the things that I have it. Let me see, can I share a screen on this? Can you allow me to share a screen at all? I can
Is that
pull
all
up
of
what the issue
documents that
was.
were uploaded?
I don't know if it's a different document, but do we have just the technical ability to allow Mr.
Well,
Tompkins to share a screen? Or?
I think one of the issues was, there was two, and one I think I was just dead wrong on, and the other one is there was an assumption of a road that was splitting one of the parcels, and so not wanting to include the other, the piece on the opposite side of the road as part of the ag contract. And the only thing, and I thought, gosh, why is it like that? And it's actually not where the road is, but apparently a long time ago, it was originally where the road was going to go to get into Casmelia. And so there's a little triangular piece that's kind of carved off to the side, but that's actually just part of an open field. And I had reached out to Adam Orta a few weeks ago and had kind of gone through this with him. And then it's hard to see until you put it on an overlay with Google Earth. And so we did that, and he goes, "Oh, you're right. Let me take a look." But it is owned by the County of Santa Barbara, and I don't know when they initially had fee ownership of that. This whole property has been owned by our family since 1939, and originally what I thought was the family's intention is we are going to sell this, but we wanted to make sure it's remained in agriculture. Just nobody is involved in that part of the ag deal any longer, but I think kind of to preserve what my parents would want, we're all saying, hey, let's do it. And I think we've got some routes to go. So I thought, since we're going to sell this in two pieces, which does have separate APNs, that we should have two ag contracts. But it kind of sounds like no matter what happens, if it just remains the one contract, a new buyer would have to come back in and renew anyway and see if it qualifies. In which case, that part of the discussion, it sounds like, is probably moot, and there's no reason for us to even, need to have two contracts, unless there is something. And I wish Adam was on here a little bit to kind of walk through that. The second thing was just trying to understand if the small remainder parcel that is kind of in the middle, it's to the west of Black Road, and it does not connect to Black Road anywhere. It's just part of a field. If that piece could be included as part of the ag preserve, but if not, I don't think it's the end of the world.
I got an aerial photo. Let me get to and share my screen. That might help.
I can probably comment on the possibility if you wanted to create one contract and then sell the property to two different owners.
Right.
That's not possible because the contract would have to have common ownership. So if you were splitting it in the future, if this gets split in the future, then we're going to run into a non-compliance situation where both owners would have to get their own separate contract because it wouldn't be in compliance if it was in two different ownerships. That's just a comment as to your comment of selling selling this property to two different owners.
So, and apologize, just to make sure I'm clear, then you can sell it to two separate owners, but the ag conservation contract would not track with it if it was one Williams Mac contract over the whole piece.
Correct. It would be, the contract is still effective but it would need replacement contracts for both portions to separate contracts.
That is why we originally had said, can we break this up into two sides? And if it doesn't qualify on one side, then so be it, and we'll have to live with one Williams Mac contract, and we may do something with a deed restriction on our own
Right.
to limit.
That makes
use.
sense. Right.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead, Mr. Tompkins.
So I guess I'm asking if, although these lines don't quite match up exactly in the overlay here, it's the railroad that goes through to the Southern Pacific. That is not, it's not an easement or anything. That's fee ownership that they have that goes around there. So our goal was to have, or at least original intention was to have everything on the west side be one parcel and everything on the east, or not one parcel, one contract, and everything on the east side be another contract. Does that work or not? Yeah, boy, I'm lost when you're doing. There we go.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to get a better perspective of the. I apologize.
I can kind of give you the red is obviously the one to the west, and that is
Right.
then to the east. Although they show up, I think they're tax parcels, not truly APNs. There is
Correct.
one larger parcel of about, I think it's around 1,000 acres, and that is on the east side. And then it goes up as you go east. It gets what there and goes into that parcel there, and that is the. Let me make sure that's exactly right. Yes, that is. So that is the entire property that would be on the east side.
So one of the considerations for the western portion is really combination of the size. So if we just, aside from the other issues with where the other fee property or portion of the property may be, but just for the APN, this is parcel 18, I have it down as 76 acres. And so
That's correct.
generally for our uniform rules, for the non-prime, which the majority of yours is a grazing operation, so that would qualify as a non-prime contract. You can't have a non-prime contract less than 100 acres. So then you need to look at what's the agriculture on this parcel 18. So it would have to be able to qualify as a prime contract, and that's typically some row crops, trees, orchards, something that, and then there's also 50% of that acreage or premises would need to be planted. So there's a lot of other qualifying things that don't appear that it would qualify for its own contract currently.
Okay. The only thing I throw in, and that's fair enough. And I said the only thing I throw in there is on the red area there, actually right where the little cursor is. That is, we used to grow hay there all the time. But that's all it was. It was just dry farm oat hay, and did it for years. And that as a kid, I used to have to load that darn stuff all the time for my dad. But that's the only active ag, and that has not occurred since my dad passed away. So that's been close to 20 years ago.
Right. And is that parcel, does it have its own water source?
Yeah.
Or shared water? Okay.
Yes. But it wasn't irrigated. It was dry farm
Right.
hay, and
Right.
occasionally grew Sudan grass out there.
So I think there's a lot of, if there's still interest in that, I think there's still a lot of information that would need to be discovered and discussed about to see whether or not that's even possible. So I just, versus, I think the other approach is if you're wishing to enroll sort of all of the remaining parcels, obviously except for the Chevron parcel that was sold off, but if you're trying to get a replacement contract for all the remaining parcels that were under the contract, I think that's the more straightforward pathway?
It seems to me after listening to you in this that probably is. And I think we may do something on our own on that west side to kind of, I mean, this is Casamalia. It's not really a development hotbed. So, but I think we still just want to be certain that nothing changes on the ag use. So I think let's, if it's okay with you, if it was possible to go down the direction of a single ag contract over the entire thing. And that sounds like the path of least resistance and maybe the most expedient and maybe the smartest one anyway. So.
Right. And I just wanted to allow Alex to kind of weigh in because he was also involved in sort of the considerations of the lot merger and issues with that. So he's familiar at least with some of the other details with the easements and the fee. So kind of looking at, what we talked about being the most straightforward pathway is to get a replacement contract for all of the parcels that were remaining in the original contract, except for the Chevron. Do you see any challenges or issues with that, Alex, from the surveyor's perspective?
So let me just start with, there are, I believe, 3 legal parcels in this area. The one that consists on the west, I believe parcel 18, and I believe parcel 19 is also part of that. Let me just check. Yes, parcel 19 is also part of that legal parcel. So we have on the west end, we have two legal parcels. One is the entire parcel 18 and 19, and then the other legal parcel is what Mr. Tompkins talked about, is a triangular piece on that top of 18 that we determined to be a fee interest to the county for Point Sal Road continuation. And I believe Mr. Tompkins applied for a voluntary merger to create one single parcel out of those 2 legal parcels. And we had to determine that's not possible because of the Chapter 21 requirements, county ordinance for mergers, because of the fee of Point Sal Road cutting between those 2 legal parcels. However, our uniform rules, I believe, allow for parcels being considered contiguous, even if they are cut by a fee interest right away. So in this case, we do have, as I mentioned, that Point Sal Road fee interest there, but also we have the railroad right-of-way fee interest. So on the other side of the railroad right-of-way, these 2 parcels to the east and next one to the east are part of a single legal parcel. So even though they have 2 APNs, it's technically a single legal parcel. So if we count all those, I think we have 1, 2, 3 parcels all together. And I'm not sure if Mr. Tompkins can help us if we have any other adjacent property in this area that I did not mention.
Yes, so that little red, the hatched one that you just pushed there, that is actually a separate parcel that somehow a long time ago, and I don't know when, well before I think I was born, and I'm old, that was designated as a commercial property. So it actually has commercial zoning, and I think that was when it was Camp Cook before it was Vandenberg. That was the main path of travel, and I think there was somebody was going to put a gas station in there, and they never did. And so that's what that parcel was.
Is it owned separately, Mr.
No,
Tompkins?
well, it's owned by our family.
Okay, yeah, so we are talking about different zoning and different assessors
Right.
Number because of that, but as far as the legality, it is part of the larger parcel that's east or, easterly from that Point Sal Road. So technically, if you would, want to sell that piece, you would not be able to do it without recording a map, for example.
Right. No,
Yes.
that's fine. Now, are you aware of the recent, and I say recent, it's been months, the lot mergers that were done out there?
Yes,
Uh,
that's what I was talking about. It's not, we sent a determination letter to Mr. Stanton's office
Right?
that we were not able to merge those two pieces together because of the Point Sal Road being fee interest to the county. So we had to basically determine that those two legal lots that are, part of assessors parcel 18 and 19 are not, we could not merge them, but that's what I was trying to convey here. Our uniform rules are written a little bit different, so considering bringing land into a contract, we could consider those two pieces of two legal parcels contiguous based on our definitions of uniform rules. And
Okay.
not only those two pieces, but basically all three pieces we could consider contiguous, and it is possible to create one single contract if that would be your preference.
That would be.
Okay. So now I think we got an idea of what.
So just so I understand, so what we have here is, we have one legal parcel comprised of parcel 18 and 19.
Yes.
19 being the small 2 acre little square there, that's zoned commercial, and the other portion is zoned agricultural. So, I mean, that's just,
Yeah, there's an issue of the zoning that, creates a problem, I believe. So, um,
Yeah, you're correct, because commercial zoning isn't allowed zoning for agricultural preserve contract. I was thinking that small one was a separate parcel, but if it's part of that same
the
parcel,
same legal
same
parcel.
legal parcel, then I think parcel 18 and, well, APN's 18 and 19, because they're one legal parcel,
They would have to go in together.
but they wouldn't be able to
so.
come into the new
yeah,
contract.
Let me
because of
just,
commercial zoning.
yeah,
Even
there's
if it's just a little portion that's not, well, zoned agricultural, because the majority of the parcel, 76 acres, are agricultural, and 2 of the one big legal parcel, 78 acres, is commercial.
commercial.
Is ag.
Agricultural, 76 acres, commercial, 2 acres.
Yeah, so this small portion has a zoning for commercial. But that's not a eligible zone district for ag preserve, so I think that raises a concern.
Can I ask, so the whole place previously, I believe, was all subject to a Williams Mac contract. How was that addressed in the previous contract? Do you know?
So the APN, I guess 19, Mr. Tompkins, you're saying that was part of your current contract?
I believe so.
I mean, I guess so, because and maybe it was just not,
Was not shown in the assessors.
We never
at least-
had it under contract.
At least in 1970, we did not have that assessor's parcel. See
that contract may have just looked at the assessor's parcel for 18
right.
and included that in the contract and not looked at the legal parcel description for,
The old parcel, assessor's parcel was 12.
okay.
And then it was split, assessors split because of the commercial zoning, I'm assuming, after 1970, and created that 2 acre commercial assessor's parcel. But again, the entire area, if you count it west or north from the railroad, we do have 2 legal parcels And we do have, looks like 2 assessors parcels that they don't match.
So, so what I'm thinking is if the assessor split the contract for assessment purposes and, for the zoning purposes too, that's to me an unofficial split. So it should have been under contract until, this committee would have said, no,
Sure.
there's a split here. So technically, what I'm trying to say is technically we still have an official contract that includes that little portion.
And I will say, we have no interest in the commercial development or that use on that property, but I would prefer to not go through an entire, rezone effort to, if possible.
If it is 2 acres, could it qualify for personal use?
I don't think that's the real issue, but Sergio, just to follow that line of thought, from the assessor's perspective, that small portion, APN 19, hasn't been getting the same assessment, the preferred assessment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But it's technically,
We took it out.
Right.
We shouldn't have, if what is being discussed here is true. The assessor does not have the authority to take out any portions, out of contract without APAC approval.
maybe I'll turn to council just for some guidance. So if, from a high level perspective, what we're seeking to do is to get a replacement contract for all of the remaining land holdings contiguous that were previously under contract, except for the Chevron, of course. And acknowledging sort of at least this assessor's parcel has not been previously getting the benefit of the preferential tax assessment. Is it within our interpretation to, with those, I guess, facts about the contract as we see them, would be, do you believe that we could include that same land holdings in a new contract, even though a portion of it technically has the commercial zoning?
I believe it's within APAC's authority to make that recommendation and allow the board to ultimately decide that issue as it goes before the board. It's within your authority and discretion to make that recommendation.
And if we went that way, would it be helpful to provide that in our motion in terms of the context of the historical context of this contract, that it has been, these same land holdings have been under contract for whatever contiguous decades, and as part of the rationale, and that it hasn't, that portion hasn't received the benefit during that time period of the preferential assessment?
As much as possible, just to provide context for the board and to make it clear in future situations where another landowner may try to do things similar, but it is not the same set of facts, that
Right.
is a fact-specific
To add, yeah.
condition.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Alex. Were you going to add some additional information? So maybe just continuing that to see the interest of the committee, if that was a pathway forward, and kind of building information to support that direction. I mean, I think probably most people did not know that commercial zoning existed there.
Right. So I would be okay with including that portion in a new contract, because the alternative is then we have to exclude the entire legal lot, which includes parcel 18, which had been under contract all this time. So it's like we either include them both or don't include any, because then the legal lot, that property doesn't meet the requirement of being one legal lot.
And yeah, and I think, yeah, and then whether it's Mr. Tompkins' family or if they sell the entirety and then, I mean, a future owner could always do a partial non-renewal. If they, at some point in time, they wanted to non-renew assessors parcel 18 and 19 as a partial non-renewal and get their replacement for everything, the rest of every lands, they could do that.
Yeah, that sounds
Right.
good.
Did you understand that, Mr. Tompkins? At least that, in terms of our uniform rules, it allows for partial non-renewals of a contract. And, so that, down the road, that could, if there was a future owner or your family, that could be a decision, to deal with the western land holdings separate from the remainder of the contract.
No, I appreciate that. And I also appreciate council's comments about not establishing some precedent that you wouldn't want to have become an issue in other properties or requests down the road. So all sounds like it makes sense to me.
Royce, do you have any thoughts or comments?
No, I would agree to include that, so I would have no troubles with that.
I just wanted to, so it looks like at least our agenda has all of those same assessors listed that would, if that was the motion, it has the correct APNs, right, Sergio? So it's got 13, 18, 19,
18, 19,
and 10. And then going back to the more, I guess, pedestrian issues, I mean, the other information that was submitted with the application, it had the information on the well locations and water source. It has fencing. And it does have the one home site, right, Mr. Tompkins, on the parcel 18?
Yeah, there's a home site, and actually what would today be considered an ADU, I called it a bunkhouse back then, but you can see, oh, it's hard to see. Well, in the clump of trees, that right there, that is the house that I grew up in. And then there's a little, it's covered up by house two. If you go straight down and then to the right, go right there, right behind those trees, there's a bunkhouse in there, which 1-bedroom little place down there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the rest are just ag stuff at the barn and a couple of sheds, granary.
And then as far as the grazing operation, is that something that you're running or do you lease that out?
No, we lease that out, much to my mother's chagrin, I think a little bit. It was leased out to the Rigetti family.
Okay.
And my mother passed away years ago, so this was kind of an old thing. We always encourage her to get out. She said, good, I'll get out, but you're getting in. So,
And there's also some oil production on some of those parcels.
no, there's no
Pumpkins.
production out there. There hasn't been any for several years. There is currently a lease that kind of is in default a little bit. It's kind of, we're actually working with the county a little bit on it right now. But no, so there is no production on any of that property.
And Sergio, as far as the annual survey, we're all good there?
Yep.
Okay.
Good. I think, yeah, I got one last year. The new one is going to go out this next month. But yeah, we do have a.
And there is a one other non-ag income source out there at the top of the hill, which I can't figure out where it is exactly on this map. Santa Barbara County has their emergency services tower, which actually has just been expanded. They had a shared deal with San Luis County. Now Santa Barbara County's taken it over and actually expanded it quite a bit. That is where the heck gosh, you're gonna have to pull back so I can spot it. Wait, can you
Is it-
Sure looks different from the air. So let's see, when I come up here, okay, I go there. Okay, no, it is right, okay, right next to that property line almost that you see going where the T kind of comes in that property line. It is right there. Yep.
That one?
It's hard to say. Is
No,
it?
that's not it. That's not
No.
it. I'm sorry. Go to your right a little bit. And it's, no, you went past it. So it's right, you're right, go up a little bit more, little right to the right, and you're there. It's right there. I think if
on
you scroll
parcel
in, you see the
10.
tower. And yeah, oh no, God dang it. So I'm sorry, that's still not it. Go to the right. It's to the right. Now I see where we are. It's
Oops.
not. So if you take that road that goes where Y is, go take the lower road.
Lower
And
road
there,
there.
now there you
Yeah.
are. And so
Yeah.
if you go, you'll see the tower. There's a little right there. That's the tower. Sorry about that.
And we do have it captured. It's been
Okay.
reported to us, so
Okay.
we are accounting for that. Other income.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do not have any public comment online.
Any other thoughts before I try to make a motion?
If I could, Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
minor question, but kind of there in the center, it looks like there's some buildings. Right at the, well, yes.
Those
Maybe-
storage tanks or?
Yeah, that is the tank farm. So if you see the round tanks down below, and that's kind of their maintenance shed,
Okay,
which they still operate, up there's a maintenance guy that's up there, but that's it. So the tanks are there, right, just a little bit further up to the right, you'll see that's the maintenance sheds. You're on it right there, yeah.
But there's no active oil production?
We wish there was.
Yeah. All righty. I'll make a motion that the Ag Preserve Committee find the request for an Ag Preserve replacement contract, 24 AGP 00014, consistent with the uniform rules, and to include that the replacement contract includes all of the contiguous land holdings of the owner that were part of the original contract 70 AP 062, including parcel 113270019. I was just going to include that one, the one that had the different zoning. I'll just leave it. I'll leave the motion there. We find it consistent with uniform rules.
I will second that.
We'll do a roll call. Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
I,
Vote carries 5-0.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tompkins.
Thank you very much for your patience with us too, as we kind of tried to figure out what we owned and did.
No
All right.
worries. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you for your time.
that.
All right. So I guess the continuing actions on that. So for item number 2, which was the original Casmea Land and Cattle Company, guess we'll ask if there's any public comment on this item before we take an action.
Chair, Lackey, we do not have any public comment.
Okay. So with the committee's action on number 1 to approve the replacement contract, for item number 2, I would make a motion that we drop this item from consideration.
I'll second that.
Still need to do number 3, but
Okay, that's number 2. Yep.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call,
Mhm.
please.
Matt Mayton,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Oh, I think you're on.
Aye, sorry about that.
The vote carries 5-0 to drop the item from the
Great.
agenda.
Thank you. And then item number 3 is also related. This was the portion of the contract that was sold off and owned by Chevron USA. Any members of the public that would like to speak on this item before we take action?
We do not have any public comment.
So considering our actions on to approve the replacement contract, would make a motion for item number 3 that we recommend, well, that we've also reached out to the current owners of this parcel and have not received any input that they're interested in getting a replacement contract. And therefore, we would recommend that the board consider non-renewal of, and I want to get the parcel number. Sergio, if you can direct me.
113-270-011.
At the very bottom. Okay, so the 113-270-011, the board recommend non-renewal of the contract as described in our notice to appear sent to the property owners.
I don't know, sometimes we've mentioned Uniform Rule 6-2, and that's the separate ownership.
I'll add that to my motion. Thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
And then we'll do roll call. Matt Mayton. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Royce Larson.
Aye,
And then the vote carries 5-0.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, we received a request from the applicant to continue this item to our January meeting. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, great. Any discussion on the continuance? Good. So I'd make a motion that we continue this item to our January 9th, 2025 meeting at the request of the applicant.
I'll second.
We'll do roll call. Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
aye,
And then vote carries 5-0 to continue the meeting to the January 9th meeting.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our final continued item, which was Claxton Vineyards. And the Francisco Vargas is the planner. And so I see Francisco, and I also see Zachary online. Maybe Francisco, if you have any information to provide, and then we can turn it over to the applicant.
Sure, Francisco here. I don't really have any key information. I just wanted to update you guys. The last time we came to this meeting, you guys suggested that we add the 2 parcels, the 2 APNs, because we thought that the 2 APNs were one single lot. So that description was updated, and Mr. Ulrich has updated his site plan to show, the 2-acre envelope. So you'll see that reflected once he presents that. But other than that, I'm just here in case there's any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Ulrich, would you like to provide any additional information, comments?
Yeah, I see you're still on the other screen, so I've got my other computer open. If we want to look, oh yeah, there we go. So as a refresher for the board, we're proposing to develop a new barn with equipment storage. The site plan has been updated to show some of the concerns. The main driveway leading in to the residence is dual use. And I have adjusted the 2-acre building envelope to reflect that. So it allows for dual use of that existing gravel driveway that leads around the residential area. I've also adjusted the 2-acre envelope to encompass that hedge and grass and tree area that we discussed. I have also updated, like Francisco said, the 2 APNs now show on the site plan. We'll be removing the garage that was brought up since it was there was no permit obtained for it. They assured me that it was a temporary structure, and the removal of that is they're in agreement that it should be removed. And it's no longer needed now that this barn is going to be developed for storage. The red dashed area that we discussed briefly, I confirmed from them that it is personal use orchard. It is old, and so they're willing to remove that orchard since it's not being used for commercial use and it's outside of the 2-acre envelope. So I have that called out on the plan. And what else? I think that were the main concerns that you guys had. So I have called out as well that gravel driveway is dual use going around the residential area. And let me know if you have any other questions. I think that was all of the items that we had discussed. Thank you.
Teresa, could you on that map zoom in to kind of like the square around the large home site area?
So right here?
That's good, yeah. So, maybe you can describe how that, so the long driveway that comes in all the way from Refugio goes past the winery to the home site, and then to the north side of the roundabout loops past the parking or the I guess the residence in the garage, and then to the dirt road. So along that, you're saying that's regularly used for to access the agriculture as well as the residents, of course.
Correct.
And is it just to access?
Yeah, so they
If they
use,
come in from Refugio, they go to access the dirt driveway into the northern parcel?
correct, and it goes both ways because you see the existing equipment shed to the southwest. They have equipment there, and then when they leave from there, the natural path of travel to get to the north orchards is to use that main driveway, the asphalt portion. So they use that. They go around the residence, and then they'll use the asphalt portion to get to the north orchards and the northeast side of the property.
So for that asphalt portion of the long driveway, do they access either the northern or southern ag
Correct.
in between that area as well?
Correct. Yeah.
And then for the area in red that was personal use, you said they're gonna remove that. How are they gonna restore that, or what is it going to be? Are they going to use it for
I
commercial
don't think-
agriculture? Is it just, what is it going to be?
Yeah, so they would remove the orchard, but it's not, it won't become commercial use, and I don't think they need it, honestly, because of the acreage they currently have is over the contract amount. So we didn't discuss any proposed use.
Okay. But they're not going to put personal landscaping or scenic landscaping for the,
I explained it to them that it couldn't be for personal use because it's outside of the envelope.
Right.
So if they wanted to propose something there in the future, it would need to be commercial use. I think that they could easily expand the orchard into that area if they wanted to, but we haven't proposed that at this time.
okay, thank you. Any other questions from committee members?
Just trying to figure out what the boundaries of the personal use envelope, what those include. I know you're excluding the driveway and the gravel road there,
The northern,
but it's,
yeah.
yeah, the northern one. But I don't see the envelope identified on this map.
It's,
Is it?
it's the blue. It's kind of hard to see.
It's the blue dashed line.
It's easier to pick it up at the very southern end where that illegal garage is. You see the blue dashed line?
Oh, right. Okay, now I see it.
It's also hatched too. There's like
Yes.
there's a gray
Yes,
hatch
yes.
pattern on
Okay,
it.
got it. Okay, so it is including a little bit of that roundabout
Right.
thingy there. Okay.
Yeah, I did it. I thought that I should include half the roundabout because that makes sense if they're using it, for residential use, partially, but obviously the northern half of the roundabout is used for dual use. So I thought it made sense to do it that way, and it worked out to be just over 2 acres, even though I adjusted it to go west to include that hedge. Because previously I had it overlaid and it was encompassing that whole part of the roundabout and the driveway. So it was at 2 acres then, but since we needed the hedge to the west of the tennis court to be included, it actually, it laid out pretty well, so.
Okay. Yeah, it was just hard to see. Thank you.
So Zachary, so your calculation for what's shown here is not exceeding 2 acres? Or what's the acreage exact calculation for that envelope?
The exact calculation is 91,421 square feet, which is bear with me a second.
Point one.
Yeah, so it's 2.09.
Nine.
2.09 acres. That's the exact calculation. Did you hear me or did I lose you?
No, oh yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Adjusting that.
So I'm looking at, still, granted, my aerial photo is older, but sort of at the very northern portion where if you're following the dirt access road and instead of turning up the road to go to the northern parcel, you continued around. There, it looks like olive trees or oak trees or something along that edge. My 2018 aerial photo looks like the placement of those trees were intentional to exclude continued access into the residential area. And so is that not the case you've got sort of 3 trees there. Is it just the canopy that looks like it's blocking the through access road?
I'm not sure what the date on my picture is, but there's definitely access. It's maybe they've only overgrown from a aerial perspective, but the driveway still exists.
And as you said, you're saying it is regularly used by agricultural vehicles to continue through there.
Right.
Okay. Question, Francisco. So on this illegal garage, is that something that planning and development is going to track the removal of?
Yeah, we will condition the land use permit to remove that
Okay,
existing structure.
great, thank you.
Yeah, it's a prefab steel structure. It'll be fairly simple to unbolt from the foundation, and then I'll recommend that they probably don't have to demo the slab. I think it could be used for parking, but maybe I'll recommend that they demo the slab and do some planting or something.
I mean, was it truly used for agricultural purposes? I mean, that's the other alternative. If it's truly used for agricultural purposes, then treat it as an agricultural storage and adjust your boundary.
Well, it's just we get into building department issues where we have to reverse engineer it, and so in most cases, I just recommend that we remove it because typically what I see is they're not built to code when they didn't
Okay.
obtain a permit, or it's too difficult and expensive to justify its existence from a building code perspective. So if they don't need it because they're adding this huge barn, I think it's better just to remove it.
Good
Okay,
question, Zach. Is it like a pole barn or is it enclosed?
It's enclosed. It's a steel framed metal structure with metal
Oh.
siding.
Okay. And it has
Yeah.
utilities or does it not have utilities?
It doesn't have utilities. It just has it. I think they were using it for agricultural use, but they don't need it now that we're adding the barn, and we would have to adjust the 2-acre envelope. I mean, we could get it approved, but like I said, it's just from a building perspective, it's kind of not worth it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, if it was a pole barn, it might be a little easier, but I got it.
question, I guess, for the committee members. So, I mean, in terms of just using the square foot calculations, it comes out to slightly over 2 acres. Considering margin of errors, I mean, is there an interest to adjust and exclude portions of the area, redraw it tighter? I mean,
I think 0.09 is difficult for me to even, I mean, I could adjust it to get it closer, but yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you guys.
yeah, I just wanted to see if that's raising any concern. I don't really have the concern at this point, but I want just to check.
I don't have any concerns either.
Chair Lackey, and this is just a question, would that be setting any kind of precedent that then others where the 2 acres is critical? You know, do we start inching upwards?
I was viewing it, thank you, Royce, that's a good point. And I guess I was viewing it as, you could probably recalculate it just by moving part of the dash line slightly in one location than the other. So it wasn't that any of the uses that are inclusive in that are creating a concern or more permissive, I guess, in my take. So I don't think it would, I mean, I'm comfortable with, I think that's probably as far as the roundabout, how we would have recommend drawing it, that if it's truly dual use, you would probably exclude that northern portion. And so I'm generally comfortable with the uses that are contained in that area and kind of attributed to kind of margin of error.
Okay.
Thank you, Royce.
And are not most, most square footage calculations are we're rounding, we're rounding to whole numbers. So I think the 0.09 is, would be rounded off anyway.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay. Committee members, any other concerns, comments, thoughts? Okay. I will make a motion, the committee consider the request for the new agricultural accessory barn consistent with the uniform rules. And that contract 69 AP 011 meets ongoing eligibility. And also the motion that planning and development, with the understanding that planning and development will condition the permit to remove the unpermitted garage structure. That would be my motion.
I
I'll
will
second.
second.
Oh, I think,
Royce.
okay, we'll go with Royce. Thank you.
Okay, Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson,
Aye.
and then vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving to our new items portion of the agenda. We've got 5C's Ranch Inc., lot line adjustment, and Adam Orta is the planner. We have Adam online.
Adam
Or,
was not able to join.
or is David Swank online, the agent for the applicant? Not seeing that. So why don't we continue this item? Well, let's jump past this one and if there maybe give them time to see if they come on later on. Why don't we move to the discussion items? We've got two items. The first one is Rancheria LLC. And I think Sergio, is this your item? Do you want to give us some information?
Yeah, correct. If you can, Teresa, can you bring this? Okay, so the assessor's office recently discovered this document that was recorded back in 2000. And it's a judgment and final order. It just slipped through the cracks. We never, the assessor never saw it. We didn't know that this had been a judgment that was done back in 2000. So in the process of looking at the what it's doing, if you go to the map, Teresa, so actually it's going to be the other document. Yeah, so this is the record of survey that exists for one of the parcels affected. It is that parcel is 099-040-024 under contract number 69 AP 033. That parcel is a little over 100 acres. It's a non-prime contract. What the condemnation is doing is taking a little chunk of property from this parcel, and the assessor's mapping department has already drawn the proposed portions that will be taken out of this contract. So Teresa, if you go to the next map. So this is the draft map in process. So you see kind of in the middle there by the cursor, 3.84 acres within parcel 24 is being condemned or was condemned back in 2000. That take is bringing the size of this contract to less than 100 acres, making the contract now a prime contract. Based on Uniform Rule 6-1.5, I believe. Let me go to that. 6-1.5, condemned portions of contracts should be canceled out of contract. So the assessor, excuse me, the assessor is planning on taking this 3.84 acres from this parcel 24 out of contract. And it doesn't need non-renewal. It's just an automatic cancellation of that portion based on Rule 6-1.5. So that is what the assessor is facing. We're looking into removing that portion and creating a new. This parcel will now get a new. It's going to be renumbered with the new APN. So I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention because we may need to request that the property owner comes in because they're going to need a replacement contract maybe or a new contract. And one of the challenges is that now they have to qualify for a prime contract, which they don't have any commercial agricultural on this property other than grazing. Now, the other option is the condemnation also includes a little portion of parcel 22, as you see on the map, the full parcel being 99-040-022. This is under a separate contract, different contract, 68 AP011. It is also owned by the same entity. The condemnation is taking 0.17 acres of that parcel. So that parcel 22 also needs to be renumbered, and the size is going to be adjusted as well. It doesn't make any difference to this contract because it's a very small change. So that's that's part of this condemnation. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention and hear your thoughts as to how to proceed as a committee here. I think one of the options, but I don't want to suggest anything to the property owner, but one of the options, if they can't meet the prime requirements for parcel 24, would be maybe combining the two into one big contract. But that's not up to me, to the assessor to recommend either way. There's also one more thing I need to bring up is the 1.25 acres that were deeded. It's a flood control easement. The 97.68 acres doesn't include that 1.25 acres. Now, this is only an easement. It's not owned in fee by flood control. So I've been having some discussion with the assessor's mapping department that it shouldn't be taken out of the original acreage, but it's just, that's just something separate. What we need to consider here is the condemnation portions of these parcels.
So Sergio, I think you might have mentioned it, but just to kind of restate it. So this happened when, like 24 years ago or so. I mean, when they were doing
Correct.
all-
It was 2000.
when Caltrans was doing the changes to the interchange, presumably.
Right. I'm not sure what the purpose of that take was. I've driven by there many times. You know, when I travel from Santa Maria back to Santa Barbara, I take the 154 and I go by there. That area is gated. It has a big lock and it has a big sign that says "Do not enter." So I don't see it being like a public piece of land. So I don't know what the purpose was or is for that land. All we know is that there's a recorded order of condemnation and the ownership has transferred to the Santa Barbara, I think the County Association of Governments is the entity that owns this.
Chair Lackey, and Sergio and others, I have a question.
Yes.
Where this wasn't a voluntary action of the landowner, that the land was taken, is there any way in the uniform rules that it can still remain a contract?
Well, well, it now has different ownership, so it's separate ownership. So I don't think so, Royce. I don't think it could remain in the same contract because even if it wasn't going to be completely, because I think our mapping department is just not going to give that portion a parcel number. Now it's going to be part of the road. Even if it had a separate parcel, APN, we would still be required to put this contract in non-renewal or ask for replacement contracts because it has different ownership. Under Rule 6-2, separate ownership does not meet eligibility.
And separate question, I'm assuming because the condemnation was from a public agency that there aren't any cancellation fees associated with that condemnation? Like in a normal
Correct.
cancellation process,
Correct.
they're subject to the cancellation.
I don't know if Rule 6-1.5 discusses that, but it just says that the contract shall be null and void for all of the land taken or acquired as of the date it was, the action was filed. If the action affected only a part of the contract, yeah, that the rule just goes on to talk about eligibility. This committee has to review eligibility. I think one of the steps that was missed back in 2000 is that when these things happen, public entities such as the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, they should have notified APAC that they were doing this. And I don't think that happened. I can't say that they did, but based on what we're facing today is they most likely didn't notify APAC that they were taking a portion of contracted land.
So the owner wasn't notified about any repercussions that could happen with this contract?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we have a situation with the state condemnations or acquiring additional right-of-way for highways where I had conversation a couple of times with the state surveyors who run this process of acquisition of the right of way. They what there is additional issue that these type of action create regarding the parcel legality, and the county chapter 21 code requires the remainder of the governmental take to get a conditional certificate of compliance, which is costly, is often more expensive than the condemned land that's being paid to the owners. So the state position was, at least through those representatives, that state cannot do a harm and basically create a legal remainder of the property, which in this case, it would not be. We don't consider it illegal. It just requires for sale, lease, or financing would require a conditional certificate of compliance that is run by the planning department and goes through the subdivision development review committee. And this is the reason, because you don't know the consequences of acquiring a piece of 3.45 if you don't know how is it going to affect the agricultural preserve contract, or how it's going to affect the zoning, or how it's going to affect all these other. Sometimes you can render by this innocent, a small take, you can render property even not developable in some cases. So this is a good example how it affects this type of contracts. But yes, they don't feel they should bring in any local agency. And this is not the state, this is SB-CAG. So local agencies are part of this group and the process. I'm just curious, same as Sergio, why is this piece taken by SB-CAG? Typically, state acquires these type of properties.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. If we go to the recorded document, Teresa, I don't think the judgment explains the other document, Teresa. That one. I don't think it has any explanation as to why they're taking it. It just says SB-CAG is they adopted a resolution to take it, and
Maybe it was a situation where, I mean, Caltrans was going to do it, and then maybe if,
Yeah,
down the road, if they wanted to do a park and ride, maybe the park and ride would be controlled by SB-CAG and funding for it. So maybe they took it just as a potential need in the
Yeah.
future.
yeah, Caltrans is part of that conglomerate of agencies, yeah.
governments. Yeah, I mean, they paid the property owner, as you can see here, 15,000 for that portion.
Which could be more damages regarding
Right.
the contract.
So Alex, I was trying to just follow when you're talking about the certificate of compliance. So the owner's remainder parcel, the 97 acres and the changes from the condemnation, are you saying that 97 acre piece may need to get a certificate of compliance?
If they need it for sale, lease,
Hmm.
or financing.
'Cause I'm just looking at the aerial and it looks like, I mean, it's got a house on it, so I'm assuming it was deemed to be a legal parcel prior to this action, so wouldn't it continue to be a legal parcel? Potentially.
Potentially, yes, but if we accidentally did not issue a permit since 2000, it definitely would be, recognized as needs to get if they came and asked for a certificate of compliance, I would tell them to apply with planning for a conditional, which is a difference between illegal and just needing overall county review before the certificate of compliance is issued. Sometimes people are afraid of conditional certificate of compliance process because it could mean the parcel is illegal, but most of the cases it's similar. There's not much difference between the two types.
And would that, I'm trying to think of, I mean, because one of the, I think, potential solutions could also be a lot line adjustment between the two contracts to increase the size of this one. But since that's a discretionary application, that you're going to have to go through that potential conditional CC, right?
Unless we, again, unless we issued, accidentally issued some permits in the meantime, which would be a shortcut for the property owner.
Correct.
I think the suggestion at this point, as part of the discussion, is to invite the property owner to, I mean, place these two contracts on a future agenda and for action, because we need to review their eligibility now that this has come to light. So I think the way forward is to place them on a future agenda and ask the property owner to come to discuss and hopefully hear their part of the story and see if there's anything else that we're not seeing.
So, Sir Joe, so I think our normal practice is that since this is just a discussion item, that the assessor's office would work with the chair to send a notice to appear so that that can then be placed on a future agenda. Is that correct?
Correct.
I don't know, as part of the information, looking at both of these, have they been submitting annual surveys? You know, and not that
Yeah,
it's really
actually, they have been.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, as Sergio said, it's not our committee's responsibility to advise, but there are ways to fix the problem. More expensive would be to do a lot line adjustment, as you said, would create additional cost for the legal lots if these two are defined as, or the other would be to merge the contracts into one. That's the less expensive option.
Right. And I was just thinking of that. We rarely have encountered, at least thinking about it as a merger of two, but effectively it would be a non-renewal and a replacement contract. Okay. Did you get what you needed? Any members of the public that would like to speak on this discussion item?
We do not have any public comment. I did want to make a note that I had sent the owners of this property a copy of the agenda, letting them know that their item was going to be discussed today. So just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, so I guess that concludes this discussion. I think just wanted to get consensus from the committee that moving forward, I think this needs to be put on the agenda for action. So that was the whole purpose of this.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Before we move on, it doesn't look like we have made any progress on representatives for item number 6.
Actually, we do have Brian that is here to speak on that item.
Oh, okay. Why don't we return to a new item number 6? This is 5C Ranch, Inc., lot line adjustment. Brian Schwartz, are you representing the owners?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, please go ahead and give any kind of overview of the project, and we can bring up any of the materials in our box if that helps with your presentation.
Great, thank you. So this is a request for a lot line adjustment to bring in one of the smaller parcels that the family owns. It's approximately 28 acres. You could see that that APN is 117020069. You can see on the left-hand, kind of the central left-hand side of of the exhibit in front of you, the lot lines are proposed to be deleted and then incorporated into two larger parcels, Lot 2 of about 183 acres, and then Lot 1, 124 acres. Currently, the total acreage is about 310 acres. The larger existing lot is an agricultural preserve contract. The smaller 28-acre one is not. And this request would create two parcels that are in conformance with county zoning standards. And again, this is for the family's estate planning purposes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I think Sergio, you had some comments or thoughts on this item?
Yeah, on this one, as I was reviewing the request, which, if this was one contract, then it seems pretty straightforward. But I discovered that the contract actually officially includes some parcels to the south of your larger parcel there, meaning parcel 117-160-050, owned by Azteca Properties. And it also includes that little sliver of land, parcel 117-160-048, which is another county flood control portion. So I guess we can move forward with the lot line adjustment. I don't see any issues. They can get a replacement contract. But this is also going to affect these two parcels, parcel 48 and parcel 50, which are under separate ownership. If I have any other notes, I think the split was done unofficially by the assessor's office when the ownership was split. And I believe that was back in 1990. But again, the contract 70AP022 is the original contract, which included all of these parcels. I didn't see any notes about the split in my file. But that's what we're facing here. I don't know if we can go ahead and have an action to approve the lot line adjustment request today, or if we need to wait, continue the item so that we can invite the other owner of this contract to be present and also let them know that their contract has to be put in order.
I'm just going to share my screen just so we have an aerial that might help look at those other parcels. So this is the parcel in question, and that's then you are mentioning this is part of contract 70AP022, and then assessors added the B.
Correct.
Then directly south of there, this is the Azteca Properties. And this is same contract, but the A version that the assessor. So at some point in time, is there any, I guess it's just when the assessors notice it and they make that decision to, for assessment purpose, they assign these numbers, but do we know any time frame of when that might have happened or?
Like I said, the only notes that I was able to see in the file was that it happened sometime in 1990. Yeah, I didn't see any other notes other than 1990 was
Right.
the split.
But technically, it's a single contract with multiple owners.
That is correct.
And then is it
Yeah.
this?
Correct.
And so, yeah, I have that as county flood control, but there isn't any reference, at least in our file, that it's still linked to the
So
contract.
there's a separate parcel.
Oh.
If you go south, just south of
South of there,
that one.
this is parcel 48, is that the one?
Yeah, so the original contract included all, those strips of land too. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the replacement contracts should, I guess, now exclude those portions.
But do your records indicate that they're still part of the original contract? Is that at least on
Yeah.
Photomapper, it's not showing up as a ag preserve?
Yeah, no, but yeah, my records show that those should still be under the same contract. The boundary, the original contract boundary should include those portions.
Yeah, interesting enough. This one is a Santa Barbara County Flood Control District, but it's still an ag preserve. Maybe it's something for your team to look in as well. 72,
Yeah, this was a mess when I was
Yeah.
looking at it.
yeah.
And no notes, like I said, in my files. I was hoping maybe Alex, if you, I don't know if you have anything on the surveyors,
What is the old contract again?
70 AP 022.
Let's see, I can probably find. Zero. There's a lot happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Schwartz, just so I had it, I couldn't picture it before, your description of which line is being adjusted. So is it the intent that this portion is being adjusted so that this portion is enlarged? So essentially, the contract is being reduced in acreage? Where's this line moving?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time, I think, seeing the screen that you're looking at. What's up on my screen is the actual lot line adjustment map.
Oh, sorry. Do we have?
Now I can see your cursor.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just, so this is what's shown as part of the current contract, and I was, maybe you could just describe how the lines, I was thinking in my mind that this portion of the line and the contract was going to be reduced in acreage so that this land holding became larger.
Oh, it's gonna split down the middle, I believe. So there's another parcel where your cursor is, correct? Me if I'm wrong. So that parcel technically will expand to create two kind of even sized parcels.
So this size will be reflected here. So now
Yes.
that this will all be
So
one.
the
parcel.
line would go,
Actually, this,
yeah, along that edge of the westerly.
this is gonna
metro
move
area,
over to here,
and all the way
down
down,
here.
all the way to split it into two even sized
Gotcha.
parcels.
So it's effectively taking this portion of land out of contract because this is not currently under contract. This is part of this current contract.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I think the way I understand it, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, is that they want to add that parcel to the contract, to that portion of the contract. So what
That
they're.
is correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Yeah.
That is correct. And I apologize. I'm still having a hard time actually seeing your screen and how it is being communicated in your boardroom. But how it was just described is absolutely correct. It is the small parcel, and if you have the lot line adjustment map up, you can see lot line to be deleted from, I think it's APN 069.
Gotcha.
Now I can see you.
I see it.
And then that would be actually incorporated into the larger overall parcel and split approximately evenly.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is just include that portion.
That makes sense now. I was thinking they were trying to make this collective area larger for state purposes by bringing a portion of the contract, but it's really to make both sides of that area in comparable size.
It also brings me to another comment I wanted to make, although, I mean, it's not really affecting what we're looking at here today, but those two, the other two parcels there in the middle, the other two, yeah, those two, the assessor also split those unofficially. And so I think that's something that probably will have to.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and each of those are separate owners.
Yeah, they're separate owners.
Right.
It'd be tough to bring those. But anyway, just a comment there.
Looks like they could qualify for contracts.
Yeah.
At least 20 acres and fully planted.
They're fully planted, so they possibly, yeah, won't have any issues. But yeah, so this practice, we don't do that anymore. Not at the assessor's office of unofficially splitting contracts. That's not under our purview. Yeah, so I don't, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have any issues with the actual lot line adjustment and including that portion into a new contract. It's just that, again, I think we also need to address the southern parcel that needs to be also replaced.
Right, because it sounds like, yeah, I mean, the light line adjustment is going to be conditioned, and I think that couldn't be part of our motion as well, that they get replacement contracts, and the timing we can address. So they're going to solve their ownership portion, but we need to then notify the Azteca portion.
Correct.
About that they need to come in and get replacement contracts and notice to appear, and so.
So yeah, that was my question, whether we wait to deal with both parcels APNs at the same time, or if we can do what's before us today,
I think because the lot line adjustment isn't affecting the Azteca properties, we treat it as a separate pursuit that I think we would request the chair send a notice to appear to the owners of that portion and then just consider this lot line adjustment, at least for today's purpose, on its own. I don't think it has to get held up or necessarily get tied, because as long as the lot line adjustment proceeds and gets approved, it'll be a condition to get a replacement contract on its own, and that will resolve at least their portion of the, and we would still have to pursue the southerly ownership. Does that make
That makes sense.
sense in terms of the process, I think? Okay. Royce, anybody, other committee members have any other comments or questions on the issues that Sergio identified?
I don't.
Okay, you're good, Alex. Teresa, any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
Chair Lackey, we do not have any public comment.
A question for Alex. And often, like in the ones I always think of the Casmelia ones and the G-Boys and all of those. Even though they were conditioned to get replacement contracts, they never did. But I'm thinking of just the timing of the condition language. I mean, is it often that we request that they get a replacement contract, or at least apply for a contract before recordation of the lot line adjustment? What's the appropriate kind of sequencing? I mean, we don't want to unduly hold up the lot line adjustment recordation, but we want to ensure that, I don't know if the condition typically is that they have received a replacement contract, which is more time consuming and lengthy to get to that point, or at least apply, or with the wording of the condition that they've applied for a replacement contract prior to recording the lot line adjustment.
It's a typical language that we see.
Okay.
Sometimes the application is submitted, but the contract is never replaced.
That's what, yeah.
So
That's what
you
we
want
said.
to
We
follow up
always
with
Yeah.
that. You know, I don't think even it would be appropriate to record a replacement contract before the lot line adjustment records.
So we'll use our typical.
And then once we get
language.
concurrent recording, we have a lot of pieces that, they need to be adjusted together. So probably the best option is to condition application to be submitted prior to lot line adjustment recordation.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, that's always the concern, that you allow the lot line adjustment and then there's possibility that the replacement is never recorded, replacement contract. So I don't have any idea how to deal with that.
Yeah, I think it just at that time. I mean, you check the record, what gets recorded.
I believe
right,
planning
Sergio?
department follows up if no action is taken and they already have a case, they would actively investigate and kind of remind the owners about the obligation.
Okay.
I think this may be a little different because we're going to be dealing with the other parcel to the south.
So be tracking it in
Track
some
it.
way, right?
Yeah, so there will be some kind of tracking.
Right. Okay, so I will make a motion that the committee find the request for lot line adjustment consistent with the uniform rules. I won't include the ongoing eligibility because that's its own pathway. So, and that planning and development condition the lot line adjustment that the applicant submit an application for a preserve replacement contract prior to recordation of the lot line adjustment.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
Matt Mayton,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson,
I,
and the vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you very much.
All right. I don't
We-
know. Do we have Stephanie online?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So I will turn it over to Chair Stark to give an overview of discussion item number 8, APEC presentation to the Board of Supervisors. Stephanie, you there?
Can you see me? Hi.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, David, for chairing for the committee in my absence, and for Matt Mayton for serving as my alternate. Appreciate that. So yes, I put item number 8 on the agenda. This is the APEC presentation to the Board of Supervisors. Just a brief background on this. On October 15th, 2024, there were a few, I think it was 5 county-initiated non-renewals that just happened to come to the board around the same time. And then during that, there was some discussion at the board level about the Williamson Act and the Ag Preserve Program and how it works. Board members had questions about what I heard was advantages and disadvantages of the program. They were asking in the end for the committee to come to the Board of Supervisors next year. That would be in 2025, to provide kind of what was characterized as a Williamson Act 101 presentation. And then I had asked Teresa if you could pull up the minute order from that meeting. Thank you, Teresa. So you can see down towards the bottom, I can't see it from, yeah, there. So specifically what they were asking and what's characterized in the minutes is asking that we return to the board in early 2025 with, they wanted 3 things. Specifically, one was the Ag Preserve contract compliance and non-compliance report. Number 2 was a treasurer tax collector to review non-compliance contracts still receiving the tax breaks. And number 3 was to report on the Williamson Act. And I reviewed that video a couple of times. I wasn't present during the live meeting, but I did go back and review the notes. And it seemed like the questions were pertaining to why were these contracts coming in for non-renewals and county-initiated non-renewal. There just seemed to be some general confusion and questions about how APEC works and how a little bit about the Williamson Act program. And so what I wanted to talk about today, since we're all here, is how the committee would like to proceed with meeting that request. And I talked with Tyler about that at County Council. So we have a couple options. We could, so that we're consistent with the Brown Act, we could have just keep this agenda item on our regular meetings at the end to discuss it. Because anytime we talk about this, either the presentation or how we're going to move forward with the a board letter and when would we go, we'd have to discuss all those details. Another option also is to form, for the committee to form like an ad hoc subcommittee. And that would have to be just, so we're not forming a quorum. So it would really be 2 members that would be on this subcommittee to just kind of move this request along. We're now in December, and they were asking for it, early 2025. So I was thinking, trying to kind of get something back to the board sometime in February, maybe March. I looked a little bit ahead at the county's docketing deadlines. But before I go into any of that, I just wanted to just kind of get some input from the committee, and if any of you were aware of this, and I've been tasked with moving it forward, so.
Madam Chair, the assessor was aware of this from an email that was sent to the assessors, the chief assessor,
Mhm.
assessor's office from, I think this email came from your department head, Jose Chang. And I think that email suggested that there might be some meetings.
Mhm.
I was appointed to be the POC for the assessor's office. So I am aware that this is something that's going to be discussed fairly soon. And I've been given authorization to be the POC for the assessor. I think my role though has been limited to just as a to provide insight, information, but not have the responsibility of being the main proponent, let's say, of any changes or things that should be coming from the committee, from as a whole, APAC committee.
Thank you, Sergio. Was your understanding that you would be at the board hearing when we present?
No, actually, no, that was not discussed. And I didn't think that that would be necessary. I think my understanding was that this being a project by, I think my understanding was that it would be you, basically, Stephanie, that it would be somebody from your department.
Well, and there's some logic to that in terms of, we are currently chairing the committee, but if there's questions about how the assessor, if the board has questions about taxes or tax relief or any of that, that's going to be hard for me to answer though, those kinds of questions.
True. So then this is one thing that I would need to clarify. When you
Mhm.
say that they want to get a list of contracts that are in non-compliance,
Mhm.
are you specifically talking about people that have not been responding to the annual questionnaire? Or are you including other items like non-renewals that may need still to be recorded? Because I don't know if David, I don't know if there's still some contracts that need to be recorded, so non-renewals.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll take a step back and I did also listen in when they were discussing, and I think part of what the chair is, and I would support us at least identifying an ad hoc subcommittee to at least start working on it. And then that also may, I think, lead to thinking about, partly what's the information, doing an outline of what we think the board is asking and what information we can provide them. It's not going to be exhaustive, but they were, I think, interested in, because these were non-renewals, I think we can provide them, going back through our records. Here's, over the last time period, let's say 10 years, here's, we had X amount of county-initiated non-renewals and owner-initiated. We could probably provide, here are the main 4 different types of reasons why the county initiated non-renewal for multiple ownership, I mean, we can kind of just give them, characterize why the county would recommend non-renewal, provide them some information. And then also, I think they were interested into sort of the non-responsive thing, in terms of the annual reports, because that has been one of the reasons, and that has implications. That's one of their requirements. I think it would be helpful if we provided information as an example, because I think they're also looking at additional tools that either we have. I think they expressed interest in, yes, keeping people that are doing ag in the program, but if there's non-compliance, why should they still be getting a tax break? So what are our tools to address those situations, and are there other tools out there that other jurisdictions are using? And you had mentioned Ventura County as an example of their reporting. We may want to look at material breach provisions that that are out there that Department of Conservation has at least years ago had a focus on. I don't know if that, and what are the abilities and possibilities with the tools that are out there. So I think that would kind of be the purpose of this ad hoc committee, to kind of do an outline of what we think we heard from the board and what information we can collect from our different departments to help support that. And then part of that conversation also can be, we can continue to think about, okay, at the board, because I think there's also Brown Act. It's a public meeting, so I think probably, we would have the ability to have more representatives from planning, from the Ag Commissioner's office, potentially from the Assessor's office, available to answer questions. And so we can talk with all of our department heads about how that would best work. But I anticipate it'll probably be both involvement of many departments for collecting the information and data, and then also potentially participating in some fashion. So yeah, I would recommend that we would appoint an ad hoc subcommittee members, and then at least utilize our January meeting discussion items so we can talk about it at a group. We potentially, as Stephanie was saying, even if we were trying to shoot for a board hearing in March, just the lead time to get the board letter in and information, we kind of have to wrap up at least our meetings in January sometime, or potentially if there's support.
We could do a special
Correct.
meeting.
We could do that as well, or if the departments were supportive and the CEO's office was supportive of pushing it into April, that could be one of the things we look at. But I think, we would probably need to collectively work and collect information and discuss kind of the perspective using our January meeting and maybe like a special meeting.
And I think what we're trying to do here is at least bring it to the group and understand what our options are. And like David said, the ad hoc is, to me, more efficient. It's just the committee itself has to make a decision on who would be on that subcommittee. And if you haven't watched the actual hearing, I would suggest doing that.
Sergio, yeah, David was right. The questions were more, they hadn't seen a non-renewal in probably 3 years. And then they got 5 in a row. And the board's like, what are we doing? Why are these happening? What is non-renewal? Is anyone paying attention to these ag preserve contracts? It was like 30,000-foot questions. Like, you're getting more in the weeds. These were, how do we monitor them? Are they monitored? Are, the appropriate? So high level questions, not what is this specific contract and what was this non-renewal? Just
right.
I've never seen these. What's going on?
And I think also, I don't know if the board even understands that the non-renewal is our tool for enforcement. So there were questions about that too.
And Tyler, we know that even if the non-renewals were approved by the Board of Supervisors, if they were never recorded, then they're not effective.
Right.
They need recordation.
Right.
So yeah, no, I understand, and I can provide, because we are always, the assessor's office is always looking at any recordings that affect any contracts. we keep track, and I've made it a more of a normal thing to report to this committee at the end of all of our meetings of anything that's recorded over the last month, for instance. I have a report to give later on this. So yeah, no, I get it, and also in terms of people that don't respond to the annual questionnaire, we also keep track of those numbers too, as I've reported in the past. So yeah, I think, being that the assessor has access to that information and has been reporting to this committee, I don't see why we wouldn't be.
Sergio, the way this would probably look is if you do decide to do an ad hoc, two of you would be on that committee, you develop the presentation itself. Just this is what we think it should look like. Bring it back to full APAC. APAC will review it, approve it, but then all of you should appear at that board meeting because all of you can appear. And then if they have specific questions for the assessor, the board will direct them to you rather than Stephanie giving the presentation.
I agree.
Them,
Thank you.
Presentation of how the process works and all, I mean, these questions, I first was reading, thinking what they mean, but it probably means they need someone to explain them the process through a presentation and
They were using their terminology and
then answer any
Right,
questions that they
right.
might have. So
Yeah.
yeah, ad hoc committee would be great because we could act efficiently to prepare the presentation and then whatever the committee decides whether to have a special meeting or just in January or in February, go over the presentation and together and then show up at the board meeting together.
Mm-hmm.
one of the other things I mentioned to Stephanie that certainly this is an example, but also on a couple of different recent board letters, I've been aware that when, normal review of our board letters also goes to the CEO's office for their review and comment. And in the fiscal section, on more than one recent board letter that involved land that was under contract or just ag preserve contract issues in general, AEO, Ag Enterprise Ordinance, was one of those. They had questions on the financial portion of the ag preserve in terms of how it relates to the county's budget and how much tax that are we, quote unquote, foregoing because of the value of having them with the restricted valuation. And so I know in past years, the assessor's office has created reports for one reason or another on, okay, we have 1,100 ag preserve contracts, and hypothetically, this is sort of the unrestricted valuation of those lands versus the restricted valuation. And then what's the delta? I don't know if that's something that they may want. We may have to poke the CEO's office if they want something of that nature. But I think there's probably an interest at some point, maybe not in this high level general information, but I think they're interested in the understanding the financials of the program.
So
They might have recommendations on the process or on the uniform rules.
Yeah, or
Mhm.
additional tools.
Regarding enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the
as far as the assessments and the, what the assessor's office enrolls versus what, we have a report that shows the Proposition 13 values that would be, it's the totals as if there was no ag preserve. We provide that number versus what's enrolled, meaning properties that, we're considering the ag preserve, the economic value of the properties. And so that is an annual report that I provide, I believe, to the auditor's office only. I'm not sure if if any member of the CEO's office is included, but I remember it's a yearly thing. They're always asking for those numbers. So yeah, that's another part of the information that we that we can provide. Now, the only thing that I'm facing here, again, as is stated at the beginning of this discussion, is that my department head, it doesn't feel very comfortable as, for someone like me to take center stage of this discussion to the Board of Supervisors. So I'm willing to be part of the ad hoc committee and provide all this information. I think it's probably going to be either with you, David, or Stephanie as co-chairs of this committee that would be doing, most of the presentation. We would be, taking a back seat, and of course, we can answer any questions as they come up at that time.
Yeah, and certainly, I think that'll be, when we start thinking about attendance and presentation at the board, certainly the interest of the different departments to answer questions. Yeah, they may wish to have, other representatives, and that's a bridge that we'll cross. And so, I had a question for Tyler on the subcommittee. Do the members, I know we don't want to create a serial meeting type of situation, but do they have the ability to request information from other committee members, or that has to kind of be done? They need to do their work, that just the two of them, and then any other continuation needs to be in the
As
public.
much as possible,
Okay.
yes, it should be.
Okay.
Your non-Brown Act as the
Right.
committee, you can engage in yourselves, but as you're engaging with other members on committee business, that's
Right.
ready to serial.
So yeah, I think we probably, because I could see sort of an iterative need for that. And so we may need to have one or more kind of potential special hearing dates just to kind of do that work.
Or it submits.
Right.
information. So you probably develop a plan first, create your list of needs.
Right.
have that submitted during a special meeting or regular meeting and. work on it.
Right.
So as an example, just so it's clear to me, let's say the subcommittee is composed of David and Stephanie. And I'm more than happy to provide any information should they need anything from the assessor. I can provide that on, being on the sideline per se, not being part of the subcommittee. I can provide all the information that they need as they start discussing what it is that they need. Is that what you're saying, that's okay, that?
That would not be okay, but it actually does bring a point though. David, you could reach out to the assessors department, not Sergio as a member of the board, as your subcommittee and say, hi, assessors department, we need the following information. And someone working at the assessors department could provide that to the subcommittee because they're not a member of the larger APAC.
Now,
However, Sergio as a member of APAC would then create a serial meeting. I know it's kind of a fine distinction, but.
Now, like I said earlier, we do provide some of this information. I think it's public information. For instance, we did do a presentation not too long ago about about non-responders. And so that was done through a meeting here at APAC. So that was public. If any information that they're asking for has already been determined it's public, does that still affect the Brown Act?
Yeah, so it's not a question of what the information is, whether that's public or not. The question is you cannot have a meeting of the members of a Brown Act body occur in a non-public forum. So if David emails you and you email Stephanie, we've created what's called a serial meeting. And although the information that you all exchange is completely public, that meeting wasn't public because it was done behind closed doors. So content is not so much the issue as who is speaking and are you speaking about APAC matters.
Understood.
So Sergio, are you comfortable being a member of the subcommittee or?
Yeah, like I said, yeah,
I guess this
I am
would be a
comfortable.
discussion of who would be the two people with the most ability to prepare something for the next committee meeting and
Right.
Have it in the public meeting discussed and approved or amended or added.
So I'm comfortable being part of the subcommittee. It's just that, we have, I've been instructed to not be so much as prominent, correct?
Yeah, and that, I guess, I think, and just to Stephanie, maybe you can restate, I think what you stated to me is that from Community Services Department perspective, you've been kind of designated to take the lead on the board letter and developing
Correct.
everything
Yeah.
with input.
Mhm.
And that'll, likely involve input from P&D as well. I mean, at least I think it would probably be, I certainly can be on the committee, but I think it makes sense just for coordinating the discussion with APAC, if the chair and Sergio, if you both kind of volunteer, I think that's good representative just to kind of formulate the outline and what are some of the things and needs. And then we can kind of anticipate our January meeting plus one or more special hearings to work as a group to kind of pull together the rest of the information. And as part of that, I think there will be the discussion of, okay, what's the board representation going to be and if, how that's going to work. So if the two of you are supportive and would mind being the subcommittee ad hoc representatives, I would make a motion to recommend that.
Yeah.
Is that something, Stephanie, that you're willing to do?
Yes, I'm willing to do that. I was looking at it too from just looking at kind of the questions that the board had, and I think that I'm happy to be on the APAC ad hoc just to move this along. And what I did is I put down just a potential date through the board for March 4th, but I let them know we might move that a little bit because I know their agenda is getting pretty full. But that's a detail we can address. And I am supportive too of having a special meeting because I don't know if we're going to be able to get it all done.
Yeah, maybe
time.
sooner than later, we can work with Teresa to at least
Yeah.
park a couple of special hearing dates in January after our
Yes.
January 9th meeting.
I agree.
Okay.
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 Do we need a motion on that or that it's just because there's a discussion item we can't take a?
If you want to appoint the subcommittee, you can make a motion to that. Whomever you choose will be on the subcommittee, and that way you can start, that subcommittee is then formed and can start work today.
Okay.
Tyler, are you as county counsel for APAC?
Yeah, I can still
Are you
advise
also-
that
Are you
subcommittee.
also included in our subcommittee?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I
You
can
can
still
meet with the
continue to advise that subcommittee.
Yeah.
The subcommittee just needs to be fewer than a quorum, so, and
Mhm.
2 members of the board.
So it'd be myself, we're looking at me, Stephanie, and then Sergio, correct? Okay.
Yeah, I would make a motion that Chair Stark and Sergio Ricardo be the 2 members for our APAC ad hoc subcommittee to coordinate information for a future board presentation.
I will second that motion.
We'll do roll call. Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then Stephanie Stark.
Well, I don't vote, right? Yeah,
Okay.
because we already have
Okay.
Matt.
Okay,
Minus Stephanie.
all right. Anything else, Stephanie? I know you got pulled away and we appreciate your time being
Yeah.
able to hop on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephanie.
Stephanie?
Okay,
We'll keep
bye.
in touch.
Aye.
Good to see you.
I'll be in touch, Sergio.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You guys have to get matching tattoos. You didn't see that fine print? Excuse me. On to reports of committee members. I do have a report, but if more, it might be a little bit longer, but if you have
You want
some.
me to get started? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so non-renewals that recorded in the month of November. There were 1, 2, 3, technically 3. So 70, contract number 74-AP-041A for Pursuit that was recorded November 1st. And then the rest of the contracts, okay, so 84-AP-009 for Lost Boys and Men, AMANN. That non-renewal was also recorded on the same day, November 1st. And then contract 84-AP-008C, same ownership, Lost Boys and Men. That contract was non-renewed, recorded on November 1st. And there was a third contract that was non-renewed, but didn't find it. I think it was the original contract that included these two 84, 009 and 008 contracts. So the contract number was 78-AP-024. That contract was non-renewed as well. But like I said, that was non-existent because I'm thinking that it became the 84 contract. And that's it for the assessor's office.
Sergio, question on those, just the names were familiar. I think that were these ones that went to the board and then they got recorded, that these were county initiated non-renewals that then
Correct.
went through and got recorded? They weren't owner initiated?
No, they're not, these are not owner initiated.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then I think I was thinking the Pursuit one, it's like, oh, I was thinking, because that was the one that we recently were involved with Pursuit, but this was an earlier version. So it sounded, and then when you said
Yeah, this
Lost
was an
Boys and
old one.
Man, those were all names that I remembered that were kind of several years ago that were part of
Right.
that backlog.
I think these are part of the ones that were
Correct.
kind of.
Right. Yeah, because I remember sort of in November, there was a wave of them, and then, and then December, some additional ones in that backlog.
Right.
Okay, great. And then I have a report from the committee on the agriculture enterprise ordinance. So that was at the board on Tuesday and they voted to adopt. So that was the final approval for the agriculture enterprise ordinance. As you recall, that also included a uniform rules amendment. And so the uniform rules amendment that APAC had recommended to the board. There was some initial comments from board members in terms of the AEO uses that were identified and allowed or proposed to be allowed through the zoning ordinance should also be allowed on contracted land in terms of a sort of equivalency. If it was determined that these were appropriate or to be on ag land, that also generally they should also be kind of the same level as the zoning ordinance in the uniform rules. Part of that conversation also was in the environmental impact report for the ordinance amendments. There was a mitigation measure in there that was specific to the uniform rules to amend, it identified amending the uniform rules to include some specific compatibility criteria just for small scale campgrounds at the time. And so it had different sort of limitations for prime contracts and land and then other limitations, compatibility criteria for non-prime contracts. So that eventually led to sort of a compromise discussion between the board members to look at that mitigation measure and accept the mitigation measure compatibility criteria for the prime contracts that had limited both the size of the area for the campgrounds. And then for the non-primes, generally align it with what the planning commission recommendation would allow in terms of the number of multiple campsites and total acreage. And so that was sort of the compromise that the board adopted. So what staff did for the hearing for yesterday is went into the uniform rules and made additional amendments based on what we heard from the Board of Supervisors to include that compromise for the small scale campgrounds, or the other recommended compatibility criteria that the APAC had initially recommended. Those were adjusted to align more closely with the uses that ultimately were adopted and allowed by the zoning ordinance. So for example, one of the examples was that the APAC recommended was the issue of stacking, as you recall. So we had farm stays and campgrounds, and the APAC had recommended that in order to do both on contracted land, you needed at least 100 acres. But if you had a premises that was less than 100 acres, you could only do one. You could only do a campground, or you could only do a farm stay. So that was an example where aside from the campgrounds compromise, generally that stacking provision was not included by the board. So that's sort of the high level. I just want to let you know that they did take action, and sort of they did make changes to the APAC's original recommendation. So that was adopted on Tuesday. It's in effect today. We're in the process, staff is in the process of making those updates to the uniform rules themselves, and we'll be posting those on our website. And then I'll also have hard copies for the committee members of a new updated published version of the uniform rules that includes those for our January meeting. So just wanted to give you an update and can answer any questions you might have. Oh, sorry. And I'll also say at more than one point, the APAC or the board wanted to convey back to the APAC that they wanted to encourage the APAC to coordinate more with the planning commission on when they're, viewing this as communicating both from the APAC's perspective of their recommendations. So it could be considered as part of the planning commission information and deliberations and potentially even back and forth, because and that's partly also from the planning and development side, is that we'll try to facilitate that more for this effort and for the other effort. Traditionally, the APAC is advisory to the board, and it's not an action that the planning commission gives a recommendation on the uniform rule amendments. But there was interest by many board members to improve that coordination with the APAC and the planning commission. So we will, I think, strive to do that on as best as we can when there's more policy type of programs going to the sort of like we initially did for utility scale solar. So we provided some additional direction, but I anticipate we'll probably also want to coordinate APAC communication when that project moves forward or before it gets to the planning commission, so that they're aware of at least the issues that were raised by the recommendation from the APAC committee. So with that, yeah, any questions?
Yeah, so going back to the stacking, so does this mean that there's no minimum limit now? Because we, like you said, David, we had originally suggested 100 acres or more could have both stacking. And so now they removed this, right? So
for the allowances in the zoning ordinance individually, each of those uses, they still need to so for farm stays and campgrounds, you need at least a 40-acre minimum premise. So there is that. It was just the sort of the combination, the stacking, I think, got more attention, particularly on the smaller premises. And that's why APEC had recommended if you wanted to do both, you had to have at least 100 acres. So yeah, technically, both of those uses on contracted land, on premises, between 40 acres and less than 100 acres could be allowed. And you would look at for small scale campgrounds, at least, they did include the compromise to limit the number of campground envelopes to a single envelope for prime versus multiple. So that was aligning more closely with the Apex original recommendation.
So the clustering of the,
Right. So for the campgrounds on the prime, less than 100 acres, they would still be limited to one envelope.
thank you.
Okay, yeah, so that concludes my report. Any other committee reports? Good. All right, our final meeting of the year. So everyone have a safe, happy holiday season, and we'll reconvene in the new year on January 9th. Great.
Right, thank you. Hope all
Thank
of you.
you.
You're Royce.
Thank you.